Welcome back to Worst Seats in the House. Michael Russo, Anthony LaPanta, coming to you on a beautiful, what night is this? Monday night?
Monday night.
Here at Tuttle's and Hopkins. Our next live show, we don't know yet, but we will have one once the playoff schedule comes out, assuming, as Anthony's been saying, that the Wild will make the playoffs.
It's a done deal.
Yep, done deal, he says. And jinxes aren't real, so we know that it must be done. And it really, and by the way, welcome to the Aquarius Home Services studio. And one reason why Anthony further thinks it's a done deal is last night's big win. And again, this team makes no sense. They go out to New York, they don't get a win. The Islander game could not have been more disappointing. They lose Jake Middleton in that game to add to their injury issues. And then they come home against a team that they usually struggle with and play one of their best games probably in 2 or 3 months. I mean, that was even the first 2 periods. You look at their analytical numbers, their 5-on-5 shots, everything. They definitely came to play last night, and they finally get rewarded.
Yeah, I thought the first period was right up there with the better periods they've played all year, even though they were down 1-0. It was amazing how dominant they were. They knew the importance of the game. We have a chance to see it a little bit behind the scenes leaving New York after the loss against the Islanders. And it was evident that they were unhappy to a man with the way they had played. John Hines was pretty blunt about it afterward, just saying that they weren't ready mentally or physically to play the type of game needed to beat that Islander team. I thought they played pretty well against both the Devils and Rangers, just came up empty in extra sessions. But getting on the plane with those guys for the ride home, it was different. There was just a different feel. And when we immediately then got the update on what was happening the next day, that there was no practice, that it was all meetings, team meeting, individual meetings. And it was pretty clear that this was an enough is enough type meeting. And I thought they came out and responded in a big way in a big game against a very good opponent, and played the way they had to play. And even with it down 1-0, didn't waver, didn't get knocked off their game. And how big was that third period by Boldy, Rossi, and Foligno? I thought those 3 guys in a period that might define the season for the Wild came through in a big way.
I was joking with Marcus, the fact that Kaprizov's coming in right around the corner, and the old cliche, like, when a guy's coming back from injury, like, you're worried about losing your spot. So Marcus on the first line, with Kaprizov coming back, you don't want to lose that spot on the left wing, even though we all know what's about to happen. I wanted to talk to what you were just saying about the enough is enough and the bus ride and the plan. And that's what I meant with when John Hines and I had that back and forth at the tail end of that press conference on Long Island, where he basically did hammer the team. But what got him sort of angry was my use of the term "stop the bleeding." And he started talking about, well, we played, this, if you're talking about this game, I'll give you that, but I'm not going to talk about the Devils and the Rangers. And the reality is, to me, you could say that at game 50. But right now, we all knew what was happening with the guys, with the teams behind them. The fact, like, at this time of year, I don't care if you're not getting points in overtime, or you're not getting that extra point. The reality is you didn't win. You had 1 win in 7 games up until this point. And yes, with all these teams behind them and St. Louis already leapfrogging them, there just comes a point after being in that locker room and seeing the demeanor of those guys and how pissed off they were at themselves, that you got to figure out a way to regroup this team. And whatever happened, and whether he and I, disagree on the way that I phrased it, the reality is that what we saw against Dallas is how this team must play if they want to actually get victories. And yes, they were finally rewarded for it. And yes, as you said, they played well against the Devils and the Rangers. But there just comes a point that at game 76, you got to start winning these games. And when you go into Long Island, who has been terrible, and you're not getting a victory in a game that you must win, that to me is a problem.
It is. Well, that game, and that's why I actually agree with John and his assessment of it, is because I thought they played well in Dallas and got beat. Second of back-to-backs at home against Vegas. I know the final was 5-1. It was a 2-1 game with 2 minutes to go in the game. The games that were disappointing to me during that 7-game stretch was the home game against New Jersey, where the Devils had played the night before against Winnipeg. It was a 5:00 start. The Wild had every reason to get 2 points in that game and they didn't start anywhere close to well enough. But then they played well in New Jersey, played well against the Rangers. Then I thought the Islander game, so to me, out of the 7
They played
games,
well against the Rangers offensively. Let's not
well,
go with they played
they
well.
actually, I didn't think they were that bad. They just didn't get a save when they needed a save.
Right.
I thought
but
defensively, the Rangers were good offensively, and Minnesota defended fairly well. I just think they didn't get a save. But over the 7 games, my point is simply that I think the Devils game at home was a disappointment, and then the Islander game was, they just were not ready to if they show up and jump out 2-0 in that game, they win 4-0 and the Islanders go away. And instead, they gave the Islanders reason to believe they could win the game, because I just thought they came out, they looked tired, they looked flat with no reason to. They had no practice the day before, and I don't know what it was, but something looked off from the start that night. And so the way they responded against Dallas, I thought, was tremendous. And look, I mean, at any point during the season, you're going to have a stretch of 7 periods or 5 games or whatever where the team looks a little off. When it happens in the final 2 weeks of a season, just like it does at the beginning, the first 2 weeks, it has a little more light on it for sure. And it's because you're thinking and you're looking at the playoff race where you're feeling like every point, every 2 points is a problem. But there's a reason they play 82. And over 78 games, the Wild have been one of the best 8 teams in the Western Conference by a clear margin over Calgary and Vancouver. They've earned their spot where they are. And I just don't think you can overreact to one day where they don't play very well against the Islanders.
First of all, since January 9th, they've been one of the worst teams in the league. They also have one of the most, I mean, they've lost by 4, 5, 6 goals a dozen times this year. So let's not pretend that they're elite. Okay. But I just think at that point, to keep on saying the same thing, there just needs to come a point. And I guess my point to him, as you were pointing out on the plane and on the bus ride, is that when Zuccarello has no answers, and when Freddie's like, I don't even know what to say, and Brock is just devastated that they can't piece up a win. That was my only point to him, is like, how do you lift this team up?
Right. Well, and you have to, because, and that's why I think they had an urgency to it. Like, look, we've worked too hard through 77 games to let it get away by not bringing our best effort for the next 5. And it was, let's make sure no matter what happens between here and the finish, that it isn't ever a lack of effort from the drop of the puck. And it clearly wasn't then against Dallas.
Going into the playoffs, last night, what we saw from Rossi and Boldy, to your point, and it's almost like Foligno drags them into the fight. That Matt Boldy goal last night is exactly what Bill Guerin has wanted from the playoffs. I mean, he goes to the net, he takes abuse. There's an absolute, just total abandonment of just trying to get that goal. And that's what they're going to want to see in the playoffs. Rossi, outstanding, filthy pass to Foligno driving the net. The fourth line bringing energy. This is what they're going to start to need once they get their guys back, which, by the way, we could be seeing number 97 on Wednesday night against the San Jose Sharks.
Yeah, and I think the Boldy, I thought that shift, remember earlier in the shift, he had a great drive to the net that got stopped, and Rossi seems to have broken the seal on the road trip, scored the big goal in New York, then has the winner in overtime here. They need him to get back to the way he was playing earlier in the season. It felt like he had hit a wall down the stretch. And I agree with you on the fourth line. In fact, I was getting Vinny's thoughts for tonight's show, and he brought up the fourth line, because he brought up what are your reflections now on the Brazeau trade? And I said, this is exactly what the Wild had in mind when they brought him in. This fourth line now has an identity. Trenyon's been different. He's 8th in the league in hits since the 1st of February. He's just been different. Brazeau he's been a factor. He doesn't pile up big hits, but they can't move him. And they've had at least 3 goals where he's been a factor because he's been immovable in front of the net. I think this has a chance to be a line that could be a momentum-changing type line.
He will not be in the playoff lineup. Yeah.
It's going to change. Well, he will be, but
I don't know if Brazeau will be in.
I think he will. I think.
So who's next coming?
I think it's going to be you'll have Hinostroza and Shore will be the 2 guys that come out, at least to start. And your fourth line will probably be something like Hartman with Trenyon and Brazeau, and which could be a momentum changing type line. I think those guys have started to play the game. And if you look at it, the guys they had on the fourth line before, I mean, they were minus machines. They were trying to make plays that they'll never make in their careers. These guys keep it pretty simple. And they seem to make the smart, and they're not going to score.
By the way, Murat Huseinov, 1 goal, 2 assists in 14 games with 7 shots on goal and minus 7.
And that's about the same as
for a
he
team
had
that
with the Wild.
couldn't win if they, were playing against an ECHL team. That might be one of the worst hockey teams I've ever seen.
They are. And
I watched that game against Buffalo the other night.
He scored early and all these Wild. This is what the Wild gave up on him. Like, look, that'll be. Call me when he gets his next goal. He averages about a shot every week, and he's going to be a minus machine in his
I don't
career.
think they're going to qualify.
He just is.
They're in pure tank mode, and this is the smartest way to do it right now. Like poor Pasta's got. I can't even imagine what Pasternak's dealing with. On Rossi, and you mentioned this is the way he has to play. It's funny because first of all, I will say, and you and I both know this, that Rossi has been really dealing with myriad injuries and playing through it.
He hasn't missed a game.
And it's crazy. I mean, he's the upper thing, the puck off the knee that still has him limping around. He gets cross-checked in the head. I still don't buy that he was 100% healthy. And yet he shows up every game. And the hitting the wall, I completely agree with. And there are times in the last month I'm looking at him and I'm like, yeah, all right, I can see why they don't want to invest and give him a bunch of money. But then you look at the season as a whole, which you like to do about the team, and you think about how many unbelievably big goals Marco Rossi or plays he has made for this team this season, especially at the beginning of the Kirill Kaprizov injury absence. When we're going to places like Utah and he's the one that's scoring with the 6-on-5. And, it just, he's just got this knack and this uncanny skill and courage to come up at the big moments. Yeah, there are going to be times, being undersized that he is, that you're going to be unable to function at times. But then when you need a play to be made, he always seems to get it done.
There's been so many nights where it's okay, he's been off, and then all of a sudden there at the end of the night, he's on the score sheet in the third period, a 2-point night in a big game. And he's had 2 big goals here in the last week and a half for a Minnesota team that their playoff lives were on the line, and he's come through. So I agree with you. I think you look at the package as a whole, and that's the same thing with Matt Boldy. I know he's been catching a lot of ire from Wild fans lately, and I had a couple Wild fans that reached out to me this week about that. Are you tired of us now because let's just say that they might have been a little negative after the second period of the Dallas game about when I pointed out that the Wild had outplayed Dallas, and then threw out that they were tired of hearing any of these stuff. It makes you feel better, but the only stat that matters are the goals. And so had a little fun going back and forth.
And it wasn't even me doing that to you.
It wasn't you, but I did tell at one point, I think I may have tagged you in a reply to one of them that just said, all right, I'll just call the NHL stats department, tell them they can send home all their game night stats guys. The PR staff can stop sending out media notes and printing up stats because the only stat that matters are the goals. So we'll just bring 2 guys that can turn on a red light when somebody scores. We don't need anybody else. And
wow, I missed all this.
Yeah. And I actually, I was.
It's not. It feels refreshing to me to know that you are finally exploding on Twitter.
Well,
it took long enough. My God,
I don't know that I'd call it an explosion. Although Margot did give me a little grief for saying that she thought maybe I should have just not said anything. Because after the game, I found the need to say to all of you who pointed out to me that none of the statistics mattered except the score. Wild 3, Stars 2. And we'll just leave it
I would
at
have
that.
probably done the same thing. So you are now it's a little bit. I guess
but
me on X is now contagious.
I had one fan I had a few fans with colorful jabs at me, and I just wanted. Then one finally just responded like, "Are you tired of us yet? Do you ever get sick of us?" And I was like, "No, I don't. Like, I love Wild fans. I love all the fact that all you guys come out here for shows like this. I mean,
this place is packed.
It is. It's a great crowd, and I know that frustration sets in. I know how fans work, and they get frustrated. They also get excited when things are great, and it's the same fans that once the game's over, then they reply, "Oh, love you, LaPanta." Well, a period ago, you were calling me the biggest idiot on the planet because I said the Wild had outshot him 12-1. I mean, that's what makes our jobs great. It's why the buildings are full, the crowds are cheering. I mean, I love all of that. And sometimes
You said that on Twitter, by the way?
I did.
I would have vomited. I would have definitely sent you a vomit emoji.
Yeah, but I truly mean it.
With a little brown nose.
But I also think that then there was one guy, because I said, and I love the frustration, I love the passion. There's times where logic still can reign. Like a statistic is still a statistic, and then you get all the responses with that. I want actual goals more than expected goals. Well, so does everybody else. But there's a reason why every team has an analytics department. They're studying statistics to try to predict who's likely to succeed in the future, who's likely to play well together, who's likely to be able to duplicate what they're doing. And in yesterday's game, as an example, first period, my point was that if the Wild play like they played 5-on-5 in the first period, they're going to win the game. And they did. But it's just a statistic. It's not an opinion. I don't have a stake in this. I didn't build the roster. I didn't set the lineup. I didn't make the game plan. I'm not the guy trying to score or prevent pucks from going in. I'm just a guy watching the game. But here's a statistic that makes the game more interesting, in my opinion. And it was one guy prompted me today. I was sitting at my desk.
This is awesome, by the way. I just love that you're worked up by these people.
I was a little
worked up.
And by the
way, keep this coming, man.
Right.
Like I absolutely respect the fact the fans that are going after LaPanta do it. Continue. And every time at Anthony LaPanta, you could keep Russo hockey off of it.
Yep, I bring it on. I love hearing from fans, and I love hearing when they're frustrated. But sometimes frustration blurs reality, and I get it. Like they're fans, but it doesn't mean that nothing else matters. There are still aspects of the game that matter. And today I was sitting at my desk, and I had the NFL Network on. They had an old rebroadcast of a football game. It was the Bengals and Chiefs, I think. I watched for 5 minutes, and I was like, all right, I'm going to write this down because I'm kind of curious. On their broadcast, in a 5-minute span, they had graphics that said first downs, quarterback's individual stats, passing yards, yards after the catch, the current drive statistics, rushing yards for a running back. They had some analytic stat that I didn't really understand about pressure efficiency. They had a full screen about blitz frequency for a team. They had the sacks leaders for the last 3 weeks. They had first downs passing, average yards that they needed on third down passing efficiency. I love
that you wrote this all down.
I did. Red zone, God. Offensive and defense.
You always pretend that nothing gets under your skin, and clearly this did.
It did yesterday.
This is the most prep you've ever done for this podcast.
I jotted all this down, and I was like, so do you really? Because I said to this fan, I said, should we fire our graphics guy and tell him that all we need is the score? We don't need anything else.
Poor Tom.
I mean that. Like,
do you know how hard Tom works?
Look at any of the screens that are on here right now. They got all the players' ice time on a hockey game. They've got 15 stats on the baseball game. They all add to the broadcast. Yeah. And so yesterday, yes, when fans were getting frustrated, because as you know, and you can admit this, I have never wavered that this Wild team is going to make the playoffs, ever. There has never been a doubt in my mind, and there still isn't.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
I looked at you during our press scrum with John Hines the other day.
Yep.
And watching it from the side, and that's the first time, and tell me if I'm reading it right, that you were worried a little bit. Like when you came down and you first started sitting there, I think you had a look on your face that, like, I'm a little shocked at what I just watched.
I was surprised at what we just watched.
Worried here.
But I never have wavered on that they were going to make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. I've said all along, it's the teams chasing them have to be almost perfect. The Blues have been perfect.
Yep.
And that's the only reason.
That is true.
And even with the Blues being perfect, they're only 2 points ahead of the Wild.
Yep.
So that's what.
By the way, I'm a huge Winnipeg Jet fan tonight.
But could have something to do with
Vegas.
Right?
Still, I have my heart set on that.
And here's one of the things
because like Jeremy Rutherford, who you know well from the Athletic, he's our Blues writer. He just doesn't appreciate Vegas enough. He shouldn't get Vegas. I should get Vegas. He should get Winnipeg.
That's right. It's a great interlude that has nothing to do with the point I was making.
No. Well, you'll be making your point for an hour.
No, not really. But this was the last part of it, is that what I've said all along is, like, imagine being on the other side of this. If the Wild were the team that was in the chase, if the Wild were 6 points behind, you would be rolling your eyes saying, I'm tired of hearing about games in hand. I mean, blah, 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 blah. And that's exactly what you'd be saying. And it would be a long shot.
Yeah.
I was watching the Hockey Night in Canada broadcast of Calgary Vegas on Saturday night. Calgary lost the game in overtime. And their broadcasters are, this is probably the death knell for Calgary's
That was unbelievable. I couldn't believe when they said that.
And this is before the Wild beat Dallas on Sunday. So I'm thinking that's how they're looking. They don't even think they have a chance. And yet, like, we're in panic mode here in the state of hockey because the Wild didn't play well against the Islanders. Was that on Sunday night
or Saturday night?
Saturday night.
Yeah, because
it was before the Wild played Dallas.
Yeah, and it was before they lost to the Islanders, right? So, it was that day
after the Islanders.
Yeah,
game.
I couldn't believe when they said this is a dagger in their playoff hopes. I'm like, what? Do you know who the Wild play tomorrow night? And then they go out and win the game. Yeah.
All right, so now I'm done. You can jump in now with any random other writers where they'd like to go. I just
love that you're all up in arms about Twitter. It just makes me happy.
I was for about 2 hours yesterday.
And you've never even blocked somebody. I blocked a guy today for saying that he didn't want to say something because in case I'd block him, so I just blocked him anyway. And I hope he listens to this podcast and discovers it that way. So anyway,
I haven't ever blocked anyone. That's a true statement.
Jake Middleton. That was scary the other night. Just the way that he went in, the velocity, especially that one angle that's behind the boards that looks into the hit. You realize how fast he flew in there. The way
I thought it was a major, but I didn't think it was suspendable.
I agree with you. And the other thing is, to me, you do have to, like, there were a couple jokes on Twitter that I laughed at that said, well, Ryan Hartman's going to get 10 games for just being in the building. That stuff made me laugh. But it is, I mean, sometimes you do have to look at it. All right, it's Bo Horvat. He knew he screwed up. I'm not saying that you totally absolve somebody that does this, but clearly, I mean, it's a fast game. He reacted. He did something that was
I thought Middleton's turn was awkward, and it put him in a weird spot.
In a game that I think you and I both could agree, Jake was not all there.
It was not his sharpest game.
He had a tough first half. So I just think there was some stuff there. It wasn't a great push. He realized right away that he screwed up, but regardless, it should have been a major penalty. I don't understand how it wasn't. If you look at the one angle of Francois Saint Laurent, I'm positive that he wasn't even going to lift his arm up until
I don't think he was.
I don't think
until he saw Middleton crumble and Horvat signal.
Yeah,
where then I think he thought, oh boy, this must have been worse than I thought. But then the stuff he said
to John Hines at the bench is just insane. And Bill Guerin was clearly angry. And if you read my story at The Athletic, you know how angry he was. I think you witnessed it.
Yeah,
but
I did see that.
He came out of the locker room with red eyes and yelled at the beat writers to essentially not talk to John Hines, not ask him about the call, to go down and ask the referee in a little
he didn't
more
call him
graphic,
a referee, though.
Yeah, in a little more graphic detail, which you could read about in The Athletic. And then he came back.
Really,
John
you can write that in The Athletic?
Yep. That was. It's funny.
Really?
It's funny you brought that up because we still have to dash it out, but like the policies at The Athletic are very different than, say, the Strib and the Pioneer Press. So the only thing I was like super excited about is like, I'm going to actually get to write these quotes. Anyway,
do you get to pick the little symbols that you use, or do they pick those for you?
Do you know that once at the St. Pete Times, there was a soccer story, and as a joke for his buddy that was the copy desk editor, this writer, there was a quote that was bull, you know what? And so he decided to go B -- and then write out the S word as a joke for the editor to change it. Well, it didn't get caught, got in, he got fired, and blah, blah, blah. So at the Strib, at the Athletic weekend. But anyway, and then he came back and said the same thing to John, don't answer the question, go down. Now, writers are not allowed to, used to be, you'd have a pool reporter and you would be allowed to talk to referees. Now, we essentially have to go to Stephen Walcom or talk to the supervisor or email the situation room, text the situation room, whatever. But you can't talk to referees under any circumstances. And even if we were allowed pool reporters in the NHL, there has to be some sort of boundary. Like, I don't think minors versus majors is something that we would ever be allowed to talk to a ref about it on a judgment call like that. But not a good decision by Saint Laurent not to call it. But the good news is that, if this is a good news, is that Jake Middleton just feels like he's been hit by a train, but he has absolutely survived major injury. You know what's crazy? How about this one? And you might know this, but the X-ray machine at UBS Arena, broken. So they couldn't even get him an X-ray right when he got off the ice on a guy that almost broke his neck. Like that, this league sometimes, man, like how is that even humanly possible?
In a brand new building.
Yeah, in a brand new building. So thank God he's okay. And I'm not saying that he might play in the rest of the regular season games, but he should be okay for the playoffs. And that would be a huge loss for this team. Even though I thought Declan Chisholm came in and played quite well yesterday, had 2 quote third assists. Had the breakout pass on the tying goal, on the go-ahead goal by Foligno. And he played well. They're going to eventually sign Zeev Buium here for the season finale. But man, that could have been ugly.
Could have been ugly, and it would be ugly for Minnesota's playoff hopes, no doubt. I thought Hines is to go deeper in the decor. I thought his comments were interesting the other day when he talked about
For the game.
the decision to put Merrill back in place of Chisholm, and just said it's based on what we need, meaning if we need a top 4 defenseman, it's going to be Declan Chisholm. If we need a third set guy, it's going to be John Merrill, because Chisholm is capable of playing more minutes in a bigger role. And it's an interesting spot. I don't think you see that very often, where it's your 7th defenseman becomes your 4th, and your 5th
I wrote
guy
that on
or
Twitter
6th
last
guy
week.
stays as the 5-6.
I wrote that on Twitter last week that I said he's just become this handy guy that it's not often you don't see a guy that is usually cast for a third pair role, but only when it's a second pair. And I put that.
Yeah, so Chisholm
Brett
can
Marshall
either be
lit me
your
up like a Christmas tree.
Chisholm can either be your 4th or your 7th, and Merrill can either be your 5th or 6th, but not anything else.
Yeah. By the way, I made sure to go back at Brett. So yeah, it was just, thank goodness he's okay. Wanted to talk to you about, and by the way, Liz, if you want to come back up and, sorry about that. We got to get Liz up here. Liz is my former colleague at the Star Tribune, big hockey fan, now writes for Twin Cities Business. So if you have any questions, come on up and we'll get to Vinny's thoughts as well. And I do want to talk to you about OV and all that stuff. Spring is in full swing. The birds are singing, the sun is shining, and warmer days are just around the corner. Before the summer heat settles in, ensure your AC is prepped and ready to keep you cool all season long. Right now, schedule your AC tune-up today and get 50% off. Don't wait until it's too late. Beat the heat and book your tune-up now at 50% off. How do you do this? By going to AquariusHomeservices.com. That's AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended. And don't forget to mention that Russo sent you.
There are many reasons to open a smart checking account at Royal Credit Union, including no monthly fees, no minimum balance, and a $250 bonus. Getting your $250 is easy. Open your account by May 31st, receive 2 payroll direct deposits of $200 or more, and you'll get a $250 bonus. See details and open your account today at rcu.org/checking bonus. No minimum balance required to obtain bonus. Offer ends 5/31/25. Insured by NCUA.
Hey, have you been dreaming of a lake cabin lifestyle with boating, fishing, and family fun in northern Minnesota? Well, lately I've thought a lot about how cool it would be to have a getaway like so many Minnesotans. And if you're like me, you probably think that owning your own lakeside getaway is beyond your budget. Well, if you think lake cabin real estate prices keep going up, well, think again. This is Russo, and I'm here to tell you there is an affordable way to enjoy a cabin lifestyle and all that goes with it. And yes, I said affordable. I founded a Clamshell Beach Resort, which is located on the Whitefish chain of 14 lakes for you and your family to enjoy. Here's how. Clamshell has lake homes that offer deeded fractional ownership, and the keywords there are deeded and fractional. You own it. Imagine having 5 weeks a year to enjoy Clamshell with its beaches, pool, and lodge that's full of kids' activities. Is golf your game? There's a great golf course right across the road. Like winter sports? Well, you can go ice fishing, cross-country skiing, or snowmobiling right out the door at Clamshell. And there's no maintenance, no grass mowing, no snow removal. It's done all for you. And you can own a share of Clamshell Beach Resort at an affordable price. To learn more about ownership opportunities at Clamshell Beach Resort, go to cottagesonwhitefish.com or contact Pat Egan at 612-220-9819. That's cottagesonwhitefish.com or Pat Egan at 612-220-9819. But Liz, Mike is yours. What's up?
I do have an incredibly important question for both of you, and it's from being a longtime Worst Seats podcast listener. I'd like both of you to imagine as if you are the same age, you're 18 years old, both of you have been accepted to St. John's University, Anthony's alma mater in Collegeville, and the housing office has randomly decided to assign the two of you to be roommates for your freshman year. So my question is, I'd like to hear
How
from
long
both.
would we last?
I'd like to hear
Our
from
friendship
both
would
of
have
you.
ended a year.
Would you survive together the entire 9 months? Why or why not? Let's start with Michael.
All right. No, we wouldn't. Let's put it this way. We go to Europe together. Hey, look, Ryan Suter. We go to Europe together every summer, and usually by day, 4? I'm tired of you.
Yeah, I don't know. Do we get there?
Yeah. I don't think we last to. No, we probably would.
I
We'd be
would
fine.
last the year because I could function with just about anybody.
Yeah.
But I would bet he might be filing some kind of complaint to move to a new room by maybe make it through Labor Day weekend, but I'd say by the end of September.
I think for the most part we get along for our love of sports, but we also like the same exact TV shows, like pretty much.
Yeah.
So that
that's
would
true.
probably get us by. Yeah, it would be grating. There's no doubt about it. My freshman year college roommate was this guy named Piece of Crap. And so when I at the end of that school year, I'll never forget this as long as I live. Okay, you're gonna love this story.
I didn't know
you
ever went.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this. I probably told you this story. So
I didn't know you ever went to college.
Yeah, I know. So after my first semester at University of Florida, the Sun Sentinel was like, "Do you want to come home? Work down here?" Because I was covering stuff up there for them, and you'll cover everything from high schools to colleges. And also I had this ability to run quotes for AP. And I'm like, this would be a way to fast track to get my career started. And my stepfather was all for it. My mom was not. She didn't want me to leave University of Florida. Well, anyway, I go home and I'm home like a month. I'm going to at that point, it was too late to get in to go to FAU. So I was at Palm Beach Community College. And I remember I come home from covering a Panthers practice to write this story. And I get this Bell South email or a letter in the mail, and it's forwarded it's my old address at Hume Hall at University of Florida. And I look and I open it up, and it's saying that I didn't pay my phone bill, and it was $7.68. And he paid it for me. Can you write me a check essentially for $7.68? So I went to Citibank. I got 768 pennies. Put it in a box, spent $7 on postage, and sent it to him. So probably Anthony would have gotten tired of me.
Yeah, well, maybe, but I have a similar story. So my freshman year roommate was a guy named Jim Sheehock. He was from Austin, Minnesota.
Listen to this podcast.
Yeah, I don't think there's any chance Jim Sheehock listens. But so Jim was the guy, when I was a freshman, was when the drinking age went up from 19 to 21. And so if you had turned 19 by September 1st, you got grandfathered in. Well, his birthday was like August 29th or something. So he got grandfathered in, and almost nobody else in the freshman class did. And so but he didn't drink and didn't approve of others drinking. So he was the only guy in Collegeville who refused to buy beer for everybody who was underage. Jim, this was also the early stages of computers. Like nobody had them in their room. The library had them, but they were the old dial-up kind. Jim had a computer and a bike. That was all he brought. He didn't bring anything else. He never called home. He didn't have a friend. But the phone bill was in his name because it went by whichever guy was lower in the alphabet. So we'd get the phone bill and he'd say, well, here's the phone bill. And I just assumed that meant we were splitting it. So I left him a check for half of it. And he comes back and says, well, you owe me the rest of it with interest. I said, like, what are you talking about? I left you. He said, every phone call on there is yours. And I was like, you haven't made a single, I didn't go through the itemized list. He goes, I haven't made a phone call yet. I was like, well, what the hell's wrong with you? I mean, do you have a family? Like, and he didn't make a phone call the whole year. Wouldn't let me use his computer. Wouldn't buy us any beer. So Jim and I didn't live together after freshman year, but he did make it through the whole year. My sophomore year roommate then was a guy that I had become friends with, a guy named Paul Hammis. And Paul was a great guy. We got along great. But after our sophomore year, he transferred to the University of Wisconsin to go become a lawyer. So I was starting to wonder if the guys I lived with, he might have made it through the year, but he probably wouldn't have renewed for the second year.
Well, I love your responses. And the great thing here is I think even Margot would agree that based on your freshman year roommate, Anthony, that Russo might have been a better roommate for you.
He might have been better. And Margot would be the first to tell you. Margot and I started dating halfway through our senior year. And she is very quick to tell everybody that if we had started dating 1 week earlier, it would have never lasted. So timing was perfect.
I think
Excellent.
we need Liz
Thank
to
you.
come to every show. That was definitely a good question. Liz, by the way, definitely go to Twin Cities Business because she has a couple wild stories last couple weeks on us. She sat down with Craig Leopold, but no better story that Liz has written at Twin Cities Business is better than the one that she did on me when I came to the Athletic. One other really quick, funny phone bill story. I want to go back to you
going to. I didn't know you went to college.
Well, I mean, I didn't go a lot. So
did you finish? I thought you only went to
no. So I
came
home community college and started at FAU, and then the Athletic. Then the Sun Sentinel offered me the Panthers job, and I'm like thinking to myself, all right, I cannot take it and hope that when I finish college that I will get this job still, or I could just take it and hope they don't ask me. By the way, did you finish?
So it
college?
wasn't that far off.
No,
I thought I remembered.
No. I think I have some credits somewhere. Probably about 30.
You probably have some credits on the phone bill.
So really quick phone bill question. So I moved here now in 2005, and it's about a month after I moved here, and I'm living in downtown Minneapolis, and I get a phone bill in the mail from AT&T forwarded from the Sun Sentinel, and I open it up, and it's for like $900, and it says it is very clear to us that on your company issued BlackBerry that you were interviewing for your job in Minnesota while in London and Rome last month, so you owe us this phone bill. And I like panicked, and I called there, and I'm like, how about I pay half, because I did break the Gary Roberts and Joe Newendike signings from Rome during this time that I was in Europe, but they weren't wrong. I had a lot of 612 phone discussions with Glenn Crevier, the old Star Tribune sports editor. I'll never forget, I was outside this pub in London, just pacing on this cobblestone on the phone with him for an hour. And I actually remember thinking to myself, I hope I have free data, because if not, this is not going to be good. And then I also, in Finland in 2010, on my BlackBerry on the bus coming back from the exhibition game that the Wild played Carolina, I think it was, up in Tampere, whatever. Cloud Clutterbuck's hat trick game. I did this video after the game, and I decided to transmit it in the middle of the night on my BlackBerry on the bus back to Helsinki. And let's put it that way, that was not a smart move. Stream got charged for like $3,000 for that one. So anyway, that was tough. Let's talk about Vinny's thoughts. What's he got for us this week?
One was the Brazeau trade. Like right now, if you went back and looked at it, do you like the trade? The other one had to do, he asked about game start times. He was sitting in his house one night watching, and so there's 7 games on, and all of them are at intermission at the same time. And wanted to know your thoughts on that. That shouldn't the league do something to stagger start times?
Yeah. I just don't get it. There have been so many of those lately. I tweeted about it like a month ago. There was a night where there was just 4 hockey games, and every one was on intermission at the same time. And I get it. The one thing about hockey, I will say, is that the majority of hockey fans, you're very tribal to your team. So it's like you and I might watch every single game on every single night, but the average Wild fan is probably not sitting there and saying, I want to watch Edmonton and Calgary tonight. I want to watch Florida and Utah, whatever. And so I think that the league doesn't feel like this is as big an issue as you and I might, because the vast majority don't do that. But it bothers me as somebody that wants to watch a bunch of games. I
get the disappointment and the frustration with it. But the only thing I'd say is, imagine being Wild fans and, okay, tonight your game has to start at 6:30. Tomorrow night your game has to start at 7:30. Tomorrow, I think that's why. And it's the teams all want their game to start at 7:00. There are some markets that start at 7:30, and I suppose that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to occasionally push it back a half hour. But you would never want to be the team that has to start at 6:30. And look at how much we hate when it's a national TV game and they say it's an 8:30 start, but the puck drops really 8:52. that's a pain in the neck. So I understand the frustration, because I'm the same way. I'm switching from game to game, and even if I'm watching a Wild game at intermission, I'd like to switch over and watch somebody else's game. And so I understand the frustration with it, but I think it's truth is the NFL is probably the best TV league in the world, and they start all of their games at noon. I mean, they start 8 games at noon that essentially all get to halftime at roughly the same time, and then they start another clump at 3 that are all at halftime at about the same time. So it's not that different. I suppose you have a little difference where this game hits a touchdown and goes to break. You could switch over to the other, but they still get to halftime at the same time.
And the other thing is that the league also, networks pay their bills during the intermissions, and I'm sure that you don't want the average fan being like, "Oh, I'm just going to turn on this game and not watch." Roger Martin wouldn't like that.
I think it's the minority of hockey fans that are switching from game to game. Most are there to watch their team play.
But I'm with Vinny on that one, and I'm glad that Vinny is on the same page with me. By the way, we got about 20 minutes left in the show, so if you do have a question, start to line up. We got a lot of merch here for you too. If you ask a question, grab a hat or a T-shirt. I do want to talk to you about Ovechkin and things like that. Right now, if you had to say if the Wild play Winnipeg, how they're going to do, how do you think they'll do?
I think they'll be fine. I think they'll be an underdog either way against Winnipeg or Vegas, but I don't think either team is light years ahead of them, especially assuming that Eriksson Ek and Kaprizov come back healthy, are at least somewhere close to their normal selves, that Jake Middleton's playing. If the lineup is intact, I think they give either one of those teams a really good battle. I think they'd be the underdog in either series. And even Dallas, I know the odds are very small that it would now be Dallas that they would face, but for all the angst about playing, they've played them 4 times. They've each won twice. The goals are like 9-7, I think, or 9-8 head to head. I mean, it's been tight every single night between them. The Wild have done just fine against the best of the best. And
Kirill's missed 3 of them.
Kirill's missed 3. Yeah. If you look, in fact, I looked at the games missed in those Dallas games. So the Dallas has had, among their top 12 scorers, the only player that's missed a game is Miro Heiskanen's missed 2.
Isn't that like 2 years in a row?
For the Wild, they've had Kaprizov miss 3. Eriksson Ek has missed all 4. Hasn't played any one of them yet. Middleton's missed 2. Brodin's missed 2. Foligno and Zuccarello have each missed 1. Dallas was back-to-back here the other night, but Minnesota had to travel and play in Dallas on the 27th, which is roughly the same as a back-to-back. In fact, maybe even worse. So in roughly the same, other than injuries, the Wild have gone 2-2 against them. And after the games of last night, the Wild there were 8 teams that had a 500 record or better against playoff teams, and the Wild were one of them. They've won 20, lost 20. Dallas has won 19, lost 19. I don't think anybody's looking at it saying, is Dallas ready to play against the best? I mean, the Wild have been better than people think against the best teams, and I think they match up just fine against either Winnipeg or Vegas.
Yep. And again, I am fully anticipating that we are going to find out tomorrow that Kaprizov is a full go at practice, and I think he's playing Wednesday. Eriksson Ek's the one that I'm not sure about. I think they are so worried about what happened with him in that Dallas series a couple years ago with the broken bone that they are under strict orders to as frustrated as he might be, to not play him until the timetable is expired.
Well, and even just think about how much the win over Dallas changes that. Yeah. If they had lost to Dallas,
he might have demanded that he was playing in Calgary.
And even if you waited Wednesday, Friday would be almost and because part of you would be like, well, what do you have to lose? What are you waiting for now to? But because they've won that game and there's a little more of a cushion, I think we probably see Kaprizov, but not Eriksson Ek on Wednesday. Maybe we see them both Friday, but unless things have gone upside down, there's no chance those guys play back-to-backs on Friday, Saturday.
Reading the tea leaves, I don't think they planned on playing Eriksson Ek until the season finale. And lately, the last couple of days, I've been under the impression that he actually might not, that they might give him till game 1 of the playoffs, just because they play their last game Tuesday and they're probably not starting until Saturday. So that just gives them an extra
and unless things got got tight all of a sudden, why wouldn't you?
Yeah. I'm all for that after seeing what happened in Dallas, because we watched him, even though that one, let's be honest, 2 weeks earlier, he broke his leg on that Malkin shot. He was not healed. And this one, hopefully he'll be completely healed. Different bone, by the way. It's not the same exact injury. Have you ever driven past a piece of land and wondered who owns that? Or maybe you need to know exactly where a property line runs? That's where onX Hunt comes in, and it's not just for hunters. There are folks using onX for their jobs every day throughout the country. From farmers and ranchers mapping out their fields, wildland firefighters navigating rough terrain, to construction workers needing to know who owns what property, this app offers something for everyone. If you need the best land ownership maps, aerial imagery, and property boundaries in your pocket, onX Hunt is the tool for the job. Try it for free for 7 days. Download onX Hunt in the app or Google Play Store, or visit onxmaps.com/hunt to get started.
We love supporting local businesses. We love working with local businesses. I started buying stuff at Twill in the Edina Galleria a long time ago. When I started this podcast network, I was really hoping I'd be able to work with Scott Dayton, the founder and owner of Twill, and I was lucky enough to be able to do so. Now my closet is pretty much all Twill stuff. I don't get free stuff. I don't get discounts. I don't ask for discounts. I go there and pay full freight because I want to support a local business also because the stuff is awesome. Just bought a fresh batch. I'm about to go on a vacation with my wife. Everything I'm packing is Twill stuff because it wears well. It's comfortable. It doesn't wrinkle on planes. It doesn't wrinkle in suitcases. It comes out looking good. It wears like iron, and I'm never going to have to replace it. It's just so simple. Everything from casual shoes to dressy shoes to golf stuff to dress stuff to suits. By the way, you get everything tailor fit, which really helps me out. And everything from gopher stuff to winter stuff to summer stuff. They just have everything. So go to twillmn.com, sign up for email updates. They won't send you anything unless they have a very specific event they want you to know about. They won't spam you. And go in there and say hello. Tell them we sent you. It's just a pleasant group of knowledgeable people. They are experts at what they do. It's the best men's clothing store in Minnesota. Go check out Twill online and in person in the Edina Galleria.
If you're looking for a refreshing THC drink, well, check out Giggly. It tastes like your favorite cocktail with no aftertaste and just pure, bold flavor. It's made with real fruit juice and all natural ingredients. It's a Minnesota-made gem. You can find it at liquor stores and Quick Trip locations across Minnesota, or get it shipped nationwide. Plus, with a new low pricing and low-calorie options, it's the perfect guilt-free sip. Try Giggly today. Question.
Yes.
Brent.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Thanks for coming.
I have a question for you. Anthony, I love
By the way,
rant.
Brent came up to me before the show. Very nice man. Big fan of you.
Yep.
Oh, thanks.
Very
I
big fan.
appreciate that.
Thank you guys for what you do.
Yeah.
This is really
Except when
great.
you went off on Twitter last night. That was rude.
And I feel bad about it.
Yeah.
And this is my recompense. But you were on a really great rant, Anthony, about stats. And I love statistics too. So I have a 3-part question for you. Part 1. What stat summarizes the resilience of this Wild team? That's one.
Okay.
Go for it.
The best stat would be that, and I don't know the exact number, but we have used it before. Their points percentage in games where they've been down by 2 at any point during the game. It was 3rd best in the league a couple weeks ago. I don't know for sure where it is right now, but it's in the top 10. I can guarantee you. They just don't get rattled. They don't get knocked off their game. Now, that doesn't even take into account the guys they're missing. But in games that they've trailed by 2 at any point, their points percentage is among the best in the league.
Wow, that's cool. Thank you. And then the second question, what stat shows a strength about this Wild team that most fans miss?
I would say they're the high danger chances against 5-on-5. They've been in the top 5 all year long.
Wow.
So I think they're 3rd right now, and that is indicative of that's why they're so hard to beat, and it's why they can win so many games even though they can't score, and they haven't been able to score since Christmas time.
Yeah.
Really, I mean they've been playing a style of hockey where 2 has to be enough to get them to overtime, and because of how few chances they give up, they've been able to maintain this position and maintain a comfortable playoff spot, even though they've been about a 500 club for a month and a half.
Hey, by the way, if you had to pick, and I'm asking you this for a purely athletic reason, because we have to do this week, all 32, MVP of the team, who is it? Would you put Gus?
Or
probably
Gus has
somebody
been
else?
the most surprising to me this year, just because I think he's
I joked with
for the
Joe
most
Smith
part.
today.
I think it's hard to not take Matt Boldy.
Yeah,
because he's scored so many big goals.
Yeah. See, I think Rossi's been more consistent and better and scored bigger goals. But I joked with Joe Smith today that we should pick Kirill because if anything has shown that he is the most valuable of this team, it's been this last.
All right, one more, and I promise it's over. And that is what stats give promise to what Bill Guerin is really doing?
Well, that one's probably a harder one for me to answer because I'm not a big WAR guy, but WAR is a stat that I know they use for this, wins above replacement. And I think you'd probably have to dig into that. I don't know it off the top of my head to look at what I look at it just on paper. To me, almost every contract, if you look at it in a vacuum, is a contract that's at good value. That if you look at Matt Boldy at $7 million, that's a steal.
Yeah.
Brodin, if he's on the ice, is a steal.
Yeah.
I don't know what they'll sign Rossi for, but Faber, I believe, is a good value, good bang for the buck.
Without question, in exchange for Fiala.
Right. So if you look at it that way, maybe the one you might wonder is Trenyon worth $4 million. I don't know. Maybe he's a hair under that, but for the most part, almost every contract is worth the value. So that to me is why I have the most excitement about the way the roster is structured.
When you think that Foligno is making $4 million and Trenyon's making $4 million,
well, Foligno's definitely worth $4 million.
That's my point. Is that one's
but
one
there's.
and the other.
I mean, you were one of those that argued against the Foligno signing when it happened, and I believe he's worth every penny of that.
It was more. It was not that. It was what my criticism was doing them all together, putting them all in the same room, and saying, "Do you guys want to stay?" And then negotiating it together, and then signing Foligno before Hartman when then you had to give Hartman the same. Like, to me, that was the issue that I had. I just thought the way they negotiated that was not the smartest move, to put them all in a room and then do it all together. As sort of a group thing, because the second they gave Foligno Hartman's like, well, I just scored 34 goals. I'm not taking a dime less than that. So at least they got the term down. But anyway, question.
Hey, I think one thing that I'm a little concerned about as of recently, seems like the Wild can only beat teams with are facing goalies from Lakeville North. Is that anything to note? We got Charlie Lindgren and Jake Ottinger. It's kind of
that is the last two.
Yeah. Ottinger's an interesting case because I know he doesn't have a regulation loss against the Wild, but yet they came from 2 down to beat him in Dallas. They came from behind to beat him here Sunday. They've chased him from games twice. He hasn't exactly been airtight against the Wild yet. What is he now? 8-0-2 or something? 9-0-2 maybe in his career against the Wild. It's
7-0-3 in the regular season,
right,
in 13 games, as you mentioned, because he was pulled.
Yeah.
And then 5-1 in the playoffs.
But there have been times where
4-2 in the playoffs.
He's looked susceptible to against the Wild, where I thought he looked off that whole third period when they played him in Dallas back in December when they came from 2 down and then beat him in overtime. Where there was just something that didn't look right about him. But he has been a big part of a Dallas team that hasn't lost 3 games in a row all year. So you got to give him credit for that.
And then I know, and Russo's answered this millions times, but so we can't bring Ogren up right now, right? Like, because of the cap. Is that correct?
Well, all right. So one, they can't call him up unless there's an emergency because they used their fourth and final call up yesterday with Crotty. With the cap, like here, let's put it this way: when Zeev is signed, they have to have Gans and Eck and Kaprizov back. They've got to got Gans and Shore and Crotty off the roster. So that would tell you right now that they can't bring Ogren up until the playoffs.
For playoffs, do you think Ogren?
I mean, I don't think they're just going to throw him in for what Anthony said. Although I'll tell you, he's playing great down there, and he's starting to. I think this is going to be. Do you remember in 2023 when the Wild had every reason to put Marco Rossi in the lineup because Eriksson Ek was out and Ryan Hartman was playing on the knee injury? They didn't play Rossi. It was more like they brought him up as sort of the black ace, but then they had him around the team, but then they came into last season and he had an unbelievable year. I think it's going to be like that with Ogren, is just have him around it. And then if you need him,
so he's still rostered.
He'll be like at a minimum a black ace and be around him, and they can use him at any point. but I don't think he's going to start in the lineup.
Yeah.
It would take injuries or poor performance, or they're down 3-1 in a series and want to change.
And it would have
up.
to be the right fit because, in my opinion, the guys, and this is 100% a guess, but you put Eriksson Ek and Kaprizov in, 2 guys have to come out.
Yeah.
To me, Shore is one of them for sure. I think the other will likely be Hinostroza. It could be Brazeau. Michael, that's Michael's thought. It's going to be one of those guys. So
the reason why I think
the
reason why you are going to probably be right is because the reason they brought him in to add size and a different element for the playoffs.
Thinking, right. But so now all of a sudden, let's say Ryan Hartman struggles, or Johansson struggles, or Gaudreau, or
I think injury is probably just the most
injury
likely
might be, but who is it that gets knocked out?
Yeah.
And if it's any of the players that are in let's say a middle 6 role, are you going to throw Vinny Hinostroza back in before Liam Ogren? I think probably. He's been up here lately, and now maybe if it's a left side guy, it's possible, but I think Hinostroza is going to get the first shot to be that next guy in.
Sure.
That's just a guess, but that's what I think.
And then last thing, hopefully, if you can do your best to just answer it quick, but it's a random question. So I looked at the 2022 draft. It's kind of interesting. Snuggerud, Yurov, and Rinzel were all the 3 straight picks. If you could go back and just pick one out of those 3, which one would you pick?
It's hard to answer that without seeing Yurov in person, right? Like, I still think that of all those 3 players, he's going to be the best. Like,
you think, okay.
He is so dynamic, and some people that watch the Gophers a little more than me, there are some people that really don't know if Snuggerud is going to translate other than the NHL shot to the lineup. But clearly, without Dylan Holloway right now for a very long time for St. Louis, he's getting a heck of an opportunity there. I think so. I kind of alluded to this on the podcast that him and I did last week, but the Wild are not going to be able to sign Yurov for this season, nor do they want to. One is he's coming off an ankle surgery that they clearly rushed him back into that KHL lineup. So they want him to get healthy. So they'll try to sign him for next year. They still expect to sign him for next year. I will tell you that his agents are telling the Wild, still using the KHL as that leverage, which means maximize the contract and bonuses and things like that, which I think the Wild are willing to do to an extent. Like, I think they're willing to compromise, as I wrote today, on the B bonuses, give him full max A bonuses. That's as good as they can do. There is a max salary that he's able to get. And then they're going to essentially promise him a job on next year's team. Like, he will never step foot in Des Moines. Let me promise you that. And then he's got to show that he's the player, but he's not going to be a finished product right away. So if he doesn't sign right away and does sign for one more year in the KHL, this is totally because he feels he's not ready. And, look, we all were frustrated that Kirill didn't come earlier. I mean, the guy's going to sign his contract extension to be 29 on an 8-year deal. We all wish that he came earlier. But the one thing that we did see with Kirill Kaprizov is he came here ready to freaking explode. Like, a goal and 2 assists and an overtime winner in his first game. It was just on and on from there, almost a unanimous pick for the Calder. So I think that until we see Yurov, I can't answer who's going to be the better one.
It's just crazy that those 3, I mean, Rinzel and Snuggerud,
especially at that spot in the draft, it's usually a crapshoot, those areas. Like, if Wallstedt turns out to be good and Ogren turns out to be good, or is used to get something else in a trade, which could happen this summer, like, the Wild, really, for their 4 picks there, have done really, really well.
Yeah, crazy.
So we'll see.
All right, thank you.
A couple more questions. Come on up if you want to ask. And then I do want to talk to Anthony, wrap up the show about Ovechkin. Remind me if I forget.
I got 2 questions here. So we saw Doug Armstrong use offer sheets this offseason with Dylan Holloway and Philippe Broberg. I feel like Marco Rossi's like a prime candidate to get offer sheeted.
I agree.
Because we probably won't match the AAV or the price.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that they have to make a decision on Marco whether to trade him or sign him before July 1 because of your reason. Unless they are just saying, well, whatever the offer sheet is, we'd take that compensation back, or at least you're negotiating the contract for us, and then we just sign them. So I agree with you. I did a huge offer sheet story last week for The Athletic on that exact subject. And I do think of all the names there, JJ Peterka, Marco Rossi, Cooley, Evan Bouchard, Matthew Knies. There's some intriguing names out there this offseason. Now, the cap's going up, which means it's more money in the system for people to try to extend offer sheets. Remember, you got to have your own picks. But that also probably means that teams aren't going to be, as Tom Fitzgerald said in my story, left with your pants down. Like, you're not going to have a vulnerable situation like Stan Bowman wound up in. So to your point, if you're going to lose a guy via offer sheet, it's probably somebody that you're willing to lose. So, but I don't think they want to get to that point. They're going to want to make a decision before. Offer sheet is so a restricted free agent, a group 2 free agent. So a group 3 free agent is unrestricted free agent. That means that guy on July 1 can be signed by anybody else. Technically, if you are a restricted free agent, meaning you're less than 25 or 7 years pro, technically 27, but 7 years pro. So which is why some 25-year-olds become UFAs. You're a group 2 free agent. So like Declan Chisholm this offseason, Marco Rossi this offseason. They can't just sign with any other team without compensation coming back. And they're very, very rare in the NHL. Most get matched. Last year, St. Louis surprised everybody in mid to late August and did it with Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg, and caught Edmonton in a position where they didn't have the cap space to essentially match and then field the rest of the roster. So they lost them. They also manipulated the amount of money they were giving them, where it was the least of, it was going to make it the hardest for them to match the offer in 7 days, but also have to give them up the least amount of draft picks. So they if they went $1 more on each, the compensation would have been higher. So they got 2 steals at 23 years old for a 2nd and 3rd round pick. I mean, that's just nuts. So yeah. Somebody, by the way, if you didn't hear that at home, is asking what an offer sheet is.
And then my other question is, so we know that Wallstedt's kind of been iffy in the minors, and I've been watching a lot of DU hockey. Do you believe that we might take a shot at signing their goalie that's just been a gamer?
I don't know that. I don't hear that. I think that, again, they signed Wallstedt to a 2-year, $2 million extension. So I think they fully still believe that he's going to be the backup next year. I think you still have to sign a real quality number 3 just in case it doesn't work out, and have somebody trustworthy that you could throw in Iowa, but call up, like a, I don't know, Corey Schwab type. I don't know why that just popped in my head. Antti Ranta or something. He's had 4 injuries this year. Well, 3 injuries and then the mental reset. He's currently out of their lineup right now. He's supposed to come back this week. Joe Smith actually just spent some time down there, and is going to be doing a bunch of stories on Iowa. But I don't hear that. I think they still believe that he's going to be the backup with maybe getting some insurance. The only college free agent that I really suspect that they're going to go after is the kid that I wrote about today from Western Michigan, Tim Washi. Tim's 20. He's older because he's a college free agent. He's puts up points. He can skate. He's the best face-off guy in the country. And I think that they, without Huznadinov here, could very easily promise him a spot next year that he'd have the ability to earn in training camp. So
thank you.
Last couple, and then we're going to talk about Ovi and wrap up the show.
How much money do you think Rossi's going to get this offseason?
That's good. I mean, how much does he deserve, or how much are the Wild willing to pay him?
How much is he going to pay?
I think it depends on term. Like, I think the Wild right now would sign him to 5 times 5. I don't think that his agents are willing to take that. And 5 times 5 meaning $5 million. Byfield got 6.25 on a 5-year deal. Same draft class, all that stuff.
Byfield was a 2nd overall pick.
I think he'd want more than $8 million on a long-term deal. I don't think they want to go on a long-term deal more than Boldy's contract, which is $7 million. If I were Rossi, I genuinely would want a 3-year deal. I was talking to an agent about this the other day. He just thinks that with the cap, especially with the new TV rights deals and stuff, the cap is going to erupt here in 4, 5, 6 years, expansion coming, new business. It just feels like the day, unless you really want that job security, the days of signing 7 or 8 year deals.
But how much you have job security if you go 5 times 5,
right? Exactly.
And then you're 28 when you're signing the big free agent.
If 5
deal.
times 5 is something that they are not willing to do, I would take a 3-year deal if I were Marco Rossi and revisit this in a couple years, continue to just play your butt off, produce, and put them in a position where now it's all right, look, now I am the product that you thought that I couldn't be. And here, pay me or trade me. But to the person that was before you's question, the offer sheet is intriguing for him because his agent knows right now what they're asking for versus what the Wild are willing to pay. So if you get to July 1, well, you don't even need to get to July 1. You could do this before. You could start shopping it around and try to at least get a lay of the landscape. And that would make your leverage even better with the Wild and say, no, we're not going to settle because we know right now that this team is going to offer him this on July 1 and you're going to have to deal with it. And then it puts Billy in a position where you got to either sign him or trade him. So, but it's a hard question totally to answer. There's just a difference in opinion on both sides, rightfully so, on what he's worth. So, yeah.
Who's the guy that we drafted 2 years ago? First round?
Yurov?
No.
Oh,
Yeah,
Stramel.
yeah.
There you go.
Do you think we'll sign him?
No, he's going to go back to Michigan State.
And if we give him one more year, or do you think he's a bust?
So he would be in his fourth year. So if the Wild don't sign him after next year, he'd become a free agent. But I think this is not one of those where a lot of times when a college kid goes back for their fourth year and it can't be signed, you start worrying, like, is he going to become a free agent? And maybe this is why he's going back. I think for the way the Wild have treated him and supported him, this is genuine. Like as long as he continues to excel, that they would want to sign him and he would want to sign here. And he wouldn't play that game. That's just my opinion, that with the way the Wild have supported him since he was drafted, that he wouldn't play that game. And so I think that. Yep. Yeah. Thanks. Great question.
Especially with the struggles that he's had. They've never wavered on that. They still believe in him. They think that he still has a chance to be a good player.
Yep. Question.
With the excitement around Zeev Buyum and possibly being signed, is it worth signing him and burning a year if he might play one or two games in the playoffs? Brock Faber might have been a different story, but is it worth it versus signing him July 1?
It just happens. I mean,
another year.
It probably technically is never worth it, but sometimes it's not the worst thing for the team.
Yeah. So to that point, I mean, it really is interesting with Faber. Like, usually I'm all for, like, it really doesn't matter, but there's a reason why the agents want it and demand it. And it's for exactly what happened to Brock Faber. Like, at the time, the Wild are thinking, oh, yeah, we'll burn the year to get him here, sign him, blah, blah, blah. They never expected that he was going to be runner-up for Rookie of the Year and have to give him $8.5 million right away. And if you think about it, if that doesn't happen, it's this year that they're now extending him, because that would have been year 3, where year 3 for him was, last year. So it's really fascinating.
Sometimes the teams don't mind it because it gives the guy one less year to prove himself and drive his value up.
Right.
So, I mean, if you think about it, like, I know it wasn't the same case for Marco Rossi, but sometimes those guys sign that, well, now they only get 1 year to kind of prove themselves before it's time to sign the next deal. And if they're an up and down player or something, now they end up on that third year. So that there have been some times where the teams have been, we don't mind if he wants to roll. And if he ends up being great, we win anyway. So I remember talking to Chuck Fletcher about that a number of times, and he was like, I don't have any problem letting a guy burn that first year.
And let's think of this honestly. Like, if they say, no, we're not burning the year, Kurt Overhart's going to say to them, okay, we'll go back for our junior year. And now how's that help the Wild when they want him on the team? Like, all of us in here that have watched the Wild power play this year, would you rather Zeev Buyum running that next year, bringing the puck up ice? I'm not saying it's going to happen. He's got to earn the spot, but it's kind of a fascinating thing. Like, they both want him here. And so this is just the price of doing business in today's NHL. You got to sign him. So let me ask you about Ovi. First of all, the one thing as I was watching that ceremony yesterday, I was watching with Jim Nill, the Dallas Stars GM, is one, I couldn't believe that was the same building that we were in the day before, 2 days before. Like it's just amazing.
You see the ticket prices?
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. And the whole time I was sitting with Dylan there in the press room eating dinner before the meal, and I told Dylan, I'm like, I got this great tweet lined up. The second that the Islanders that the game ends, I'm going to tweet out, like, just imagine that you just spent $2,500 to watch a meaningless Islanders win and didn't even see history. I wrote it better. It was funnier. Dylan can attest. But anyway,
it sounds funny.
Yeah, it was hilarious. So anyway, but it is like, could you imagine if you paid that type of money?
I didn't see it.
Because the one thing I will say, and I love Ovechkin, but we have all seen the nights that he does not want to play. And he could have very easily had coasted through that game, pretended he was putting in a little effort, and then gone home Thursday and broke it there, which is what I'm sure he would have loved. But anyway, there's so many things about this. One, I loved the ceremony. I thought the NHL did a first-class job. I love the fact that Gretzky was traveling around with them and the way that he made it part of them. I kind of loved that it was in Long Island because I still think the greatest goal scorer that I've ever witnessed in my life was actually Mike Bossy. And unfortunately, he played 9 years. But if you actually mapped out if Bossy's career wasn't shortened, he was .77, I think, goals per game, most in NHL history. They'd be breaking his record. Like, that's who they would have been chasing. Yeah, .77 goals per game, Mike Bossy, in his career. Like, he would have these guys would have been chasing his 1,000+ goals if he had played a full year. There was just so many things about it that I thought was really cool. Loved his dive, loved the way that everybody treated him.
I just think it was indicative of what you just could never bet against this guy.
Yeah,
and
it's crazy.
So think back to when this season started. There were people wondering if he'd even break it next year.
Yeah.
Because of what he had done at the end of last season and how his scoring production had gone down.
Remember I told you I sat down in Prague with Ferravari and Sandin together, and they were both, I asked them to pick their dates that they'd break it. Sandin goes, oh, I'm thinking April, whatever. And Ferrari was I'm thinking 2 seasons from now. And Sandin looked at him like, are you crazy saying that on the record?
Well, and then he gets off to the great start, but has the injury where you think, okay, well, now he'll come back, won't be the same. It'll be next year. He picks up right where he left off. All of a sudden starts scoring again where it became like this might happen this year. And I remember when you had come back from the GM's meeting, I think, and that's when you had shared like, this is what they're going to do. They're going to have Gretzky travel with them. Well, think about that. Think about like during the old days of the home run chase. Those guys travel. It could be 2 weeks that you're traveling with this. But not with Ovechkin. Like, it was done in 4 days. He had 6 goals in 5 games, scored every single game over this 5-game stretch. So it was, I mean, I thought the night we were in New York, they were playing in Chicago. He scores in the opening minute of the game. We had it on in the booth. Scores again, and it looked like he was going to be a guy that was going to end it with a hat trick. And it just would have felt like that would have been the story. That would have been a typical way to end it for Ovechkin. He didn't end up getting the 3rd goal that night. He had a couple great looks late, but there was no doubt in my mind he was going to score against the Islanders. And he scored every night down the stretch during this.
I love that he wouldn't go on the ice with the empty net goal because he's like, well, wait. And he just did it the next game. Like, Gretzky's probably thinking, like, dude, I got to freaking fly to all these places. Let's get it done with here. And it's crazy. 31 years. It was 31 years between Gordie Howe setting the NHL goal scoring record and Gretzky breaking it. And then 31 years after Gretzky said it, that Ovi broke it.
I mean, how about the fact that it was both their 20th season. They're 1 game apart in games played. They had both had 9 50-goal seasons. I mean, their numbers, the parallels are uncanny with what they did.
Yeah. Do you do 3 stars, or how does the 3 stars usually work at
I do them for the home games, yeah.
So, I mean, I don't want to put this in your head, but what I loved about the Islanders media is just putting, of the 3 stars in a 4-1 loss, it was just Ovi and nobody else, and that's the way it should be for Marc-Andre Fleury at the end of his if he plays that game in Anaheim, because this has been, as I said on last week's show, like the most unceremonious ending of a Hall of Fame career I've ever seen. It really sucks that the Wild just couldn't win games to the point that they've had a pretty much sideline flower, and this is it, that we might see him only play maybe 2 more games. Like, obviously he's playing in Vancouver. I don't think he'd play against San Jose tomorrow. So, which means that it's going to be at Vancouver and maybe the game against Anaheim in the season finale, that we also might see Zeev Buium in the lineup. But yeah, I hope that's the way it's done. But I love the drama. Ovi is just one of a kind. I mean, it's, sometimes you look at his effort level on the ice and you're like, how the heck did this guy have 800
and just wills himself to score, though, then when all of a sudden the chances are there. He's become such a better team guy late in his career.
100%.
That it's been unbelievable.
Just the way he's treated Ryan Leonard the last week and a half, and I love that, I know Tom Wilson gets everybody's, everybody draws everybody's ire, but the fact that Tom Wilson, other than Nick Backstrom, his longest teammate on that team, is the one that set up the record-breaking goal. Absolutely awesome. Any other questions, or we're going to wrap up the show? Going once, going twice, come on up, and then this will be the last question.
Do you think Buium will get playing time in the playoffs?
So you want to answer? I mean, I think he'll play in the finale.
Yeah, I don't think he'll, other than unless somebody, like, there's some major injury
Kind of the
problems.
same thing we said about Ogren.
I don't think he'll play in the playoffs unless it's like a Brodeen or a Middleton or somebody like that can't play. Or if you got beat 3 games in a row and just needed a power play spark. He won't start the playoffs on the roster or in the lineup.
In the lineup. Well, thanks everybody for coming out to Tuddles. This might have been our largest crowd that we've ever had here at Tuddles, so thanks a lot. Anthony and I will definitely do a pre-playoff preview next week, but that will be just him and I, and that will be out. And then we will have one more live show this month to be determined once that playoff schedule comes out. So pay attention to our social media for that. Russo Hockey, Anthony LaPanta. Keep on peppering Anthony with just absolutely aggravating questions.
I love Wild
and
fans.
Also Talk North on Twitter. You can also look for Talk North on Instagram and everything. Thanks to our sponsors and for joining us at the Aquarius Home Services studio. Aquarius Home Services, your local authorized dealer for Connecticut water treatment systems. Clamshell Beach Resorts, Twill in the Dinah Galleria, Giggly THC Beverages, OnX Maps, and Royal Credit Union. Thanks everybody for coming on out.
Thanks for coming out.
So much coming out, there's nothing going in. I know that you feel like you're never gonna win. Oh, but the world